is 6 p.m. on September 6th, 2022, and I'm going to call this meeting to order for the City of Iowa City. Roll call, please.
Alter.
Here.
Burgess.
Here.
Harmson.
Here.
Taylor.
Here.
Teague.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
Weiner.
Here.
All right. Well, welcome everyone to your City Hall. Excited to see you here, and to those that are virtually, welcome as well. We're going to start with Proclamations, which is item number 2. 2A is International Day of Peace, and this will be read by Mayor Pro Tem Alter.
Whereas the United Nations General Assembly established September 21st as the International Day of Peace, a day devoted to strengthening the ideals of peace, and whereas in 2001 voted unanimously to designate the day as a period of nonviolence and ceasefire, and whereas peace is more than the absence of conflict and includes justice, equity, respect for human rights, and care for the earth, and whereas we seek peace abroad, peace at home, and peace within. And whereas the theme of the International Day of Peace 2022 is End Racism, Build Peace, in recognition that peace requires building a society where all people can flourish. And whereas militarism and the global climate emergency are the two greatest threats to peace, and the U.S. military budget for 2022 is $778 billion, while the budget to address climate change is only $28 billion. And whereas many organizations and individuals in Johnson County are committed to ideals of peace and ending racism, and whereas an event to mark the International Day of Peace will be held at Mercer Park in Iowa City on Tuesday, September 20th at 5:30 p.m. Now, therefore, I, Megan Alter, on behalf of Bruce Teague, Mayor of Iowa City, do hereby proclaim September 21st, 2022 to be International Day of Peace. And accepting is John Jadriev. I apologize if I didn't say that right.
Yes, thank you. And feel free to give some words. And the mic is right there.
Here.
Yes.
Thank you, Megan Alter and the City Council. It's an important day for us to recognize an International Day of Peace. And so we'll be planting a peace pole in Mercer Park near the fire engine where the kids are. And it'll be a colorful thing. And I would hope that you would all find a way to attend. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Proclamation number 2B is National Senior Center Month, and this will be read by Counselor Taylor.
Whereas older Americans are significant members of our society, investing their wisdom and experience to help enrich and better the lives of younger generations, and whereas the Iowa City Senior Center has acted as a catalyst for mobilizing the creativity, energy, vitality, and commitment of the older residents of Iowa City and Johnson County, and whereas through a wide array of services, programs, and activities, the Iowa City Senior Center empowers older adults to contribute to their own health and well-being of their fellow citizens of all ages, and whereas Iowa City Senior Center and the City of Iowa City affirm the dignity, self-worth, and independence of older adults by facilitating their decisions and actions, tapping their experiences, skills, and knowledge, and enabling their continued contributions to the community. The Iowa City Senior Center provides opportunities for seniors to maintain and improve their wellness, continue to learn, share experiences while engaging in local volunteer roles, and stay connected with friends and community members. And whereas we acknowledge the importance and the numerous contributions of the Iowa City Senior Center and call upon all residents to recognize the special contributions of the members, participants, and the special efforts of the staff and volunteers who work every day to enhance the well-being of our diverse and growing older adult population of our community. Now, therefore, I, Pauline Taylor, on behalf of Bruce Teague, Mayor of Iowa City, do hereby proclaim September National Senior Center Month. And accepting is Emily Edrington.
Hi, everybody. I just want to briefly say thanks so much for the City Council's ongoing support of the Iowa City Senior Center. Obviously, we couldn't do it without you. We are dedicated to enhancing quality of life for a growing and diverse older adult population by creating opportunities to promote and support wellness, social connections, lifelong learning, and community engagement. So we really appreciate all of the ongoing support, and thank you for recognizing National Senior Center Month. If anybody's interested in learning more, visit icgov.org/senior. Cool.
Great, thank you.
Have a good night.
Proclamation 2C is World Champion Ben Keeter Day. All right. Whereas on August 16, 2022, Iowa City resident Benjamin Keeter won the 2022 Junior Freestyle Wrestling Worldwide Championship in Sofia, Bulgaria at 97 kilograms. And whereas Keeter won all 4 matches in the tournament and pinned his opponent from Turkey in the gold medal match. And whereas Keeter outscored his opponents by a combined total of 45-17, and whereas the Iowa City High School senior became the 4th City High student and 5th Iowa high schooler to win the Junior World Wrestling Championship. And whereas Keeter is only the 6th American wrestler to make the junior men's freestyle world finals the summer ahead of his senior year of high school. And whereas Keeter enters the 2022 through 2023 wrestling season with a record of 72-0, and will attempt to become Iowa's 32nd 4-time state wrestling champion. And whereas Keeter won the gold medal at the inaugural Dan Gable Donnybrook Wrestling Tournament in Coralville in December 2021, and whereas the University of Iowa recruit is a 4-sport athlete who competes in football, wrestling, track, and baseball, and whereas the mayor, city council, and the citizens of the great city of Iowa City are always proud of the academic and athletic achievements of their local students. And now, therefore, I, Bruce Teague, Mayor of Iowa City, do hereby proclaim September 6th, 2022, to be World Champion Ben Keeter Day in Iowa City.
Speechless.
You're welcome to speak.
I don't have much to say. Just thank you guys. This is a huge honor, and I just want to thank my family as well. So, yeah, thank you guys.
Great. Look like you have a lot of people here with you, and I know your mom is very proud of you, and you're not only are you a great athlete, but I understand you're an excellent student. So thank you, Ben, for all that you do in our community. We're moving on to consent calendar, items 3 through 8. Could I get a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved, Taylor.
Second, Weiner.
All right. Anyone from the public like to address a topic that is within our consent calendar? If so, please come forth. If you are online, I do see Sarah Barron online. Welcome.
Mayor Teague, members of City Council, I'm not sure if I'm part of the consent calendar or not, but my neighbors and I do have a few remarks about a rezoning request that you folks will be considering today.
Okay, yep, that's not on,
Item 10.
that'll be later in our agenda.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Thank you. Sorry
Uh-huh.
about interfering.
Welcome, Sarah.
Hi, counselors. Thank you so much for taking my comments today. This is Sarah Barron from the Affordable Housing Coalition. I wanted to draw your attention to part of your consent agenda. I believe it's item 6D, authorizing the city to pay itself about $700,000 in ARPA funds to make up for the utility gap in payments that were due to the suspension of water shutoff during the COVID pandemic. Let me start with a profound thank you to the city and the staff for making the decisions that lead us to this point in the conversation. Keeping people's water service on during the pandemic was a significant public health intervention and a huge support for housing stability during a very uncertain time. I would like to suggest to you that in addition to using this public money to pay for people's utilities, you commit to a stronger process for leaving people's water on. Using punishment to get people to pay their bills is not our best practice. I know that we can do better. I appreciate that the city has invested some time and effort into looking for better ways to support lower income residents in paying their utility bill, and appreciate that. And I believe that a more robust process where we really do an equity-focused review of the current practices and procedures and programs and get more input from nonprofits and from residents themselves can lead us to better outcomes. If you're wondering whether this is the right choice or not, I would encourage you to imagine that you are the city representative who goes out to someone's home because they have an unpaid water bill, and you look at that household member in the face while you disconnect their access to fresh water. That is the decision that you're authorizing when you agree to shut off people's water for non-payment. And I know that because you are people who pursue justice and equity, because you are people who seek to foster peace and a community where everyone can thrive, you want to imagine an Iowa City that can do better than that. And so again, today I ask that you do please make yourselves whole, keep our infrastructure strong, and also commit to a more equitable process to ensure that everyone can have access to water in their homes. Thanks.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address a topic that is within our consent calendar? Seeing no one, council discussion. Roll call, please.
Oh, just a second, Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right. No, I just want to second what Sarah Barron was saying. I think that's, it's very important. First of all, I wasn't on the council when the decision was made to keep from shutting people's water off. So thank you to the council members and city staff. That was absolutely one of those moments where you're proud to be in Iowa City and to have people that represent you that express those values. I think it's very important that we make our water system whole, that we keep our infrastructure in place. We've seen in the news, if you watch the national news, other communities which did not keep investing in their infrastructure and are paying huge prices for that today. And I think it makes sense if we can to commit to seeing, what we can do moving forward so that we have the most equitable process. And I don't know if maybe just a minute, so I know the city's already does some of those things. And I don't know if Jeff, you have a minute to kind of walk through, like we haven't just been walking out, shutting off water left and right is my understanding, and then maybe to kind of, as we move forward, to look and see if there's even more that we can do. So if that's, just, again, voicing my support for that concept.
I'm seconding that as well. When I was on the Housing and Community Development Commission during COVID, Sarah Barron had raised this as as something, brought it to attention of council and commissions, and it seemed absolutely to be the right thing to do, and Iowa City got behind it. I like the idea, the suggestion of it's always a balancing act, because we want the ARPA money has a deadline on it and a timeline, and I know that our budget is hurting, but I also very much agree that if we can look at different alternatives and work with, between staff and other entities, as we did with the downtown district that we talked about during the work session, to find alternate agreeable ways to move forward, then I certainly think that it's worth considering if we can do that with what might be, to quote Sarah, sort of best practice, and what would be equitable for residents to make sure that we keep water on.
Yeah, real briefly, I think it's well outlined in the staff report in your packet, but as a reminder, we did do an equity review in October 2020 of the practices, so we took the opportunity to examine all of our practices when we did not have shutoffs occurring. That resulted in us coming before council and requesting numerous fee reductions for folks that are households that may find themselves in a situation where they're having an inability to pay their water bill. And I say water bill, but please know it also has sewer and refuse and stormwater. It's all itemized there, but it's a little bit more than water. Those changes were estimated to reduce our annual revenue in those utility accounts by about $150,000. So pretty substantial changes to try to, again, reduce some barriers. We also expanded our low-income discount program, and I always encourage people to call our staff or stop by here at City Hall to see if they are eligible for our low-income discount program, which provides up to 60% off of the utility rates. And we did expand the eligibility during COVID through that process. But that's an ongoing program that existed pre-COVID and will continue to exist. And then for residents that have the ability to do so, we also have a donation option on your utility bill. So you are able to pay a little bit extra on your bill to help support that low-income discount program. Going forward, we encourage those that have the ability to do so to participate in that program. We did do a quick look, I wouldn't say it was in depth, of other practices outside of shutting off water throughout the country. Unfortunately, we didn't find anything that we thought would work here. I would say the vast majority of cities, well over 90% that operate utilities and even private utilities, have to rely on the shutoff as that final option. I will say that our staff will work to set up payment plans with anybody, so you do not need to necessarily come in and have that entire past due amount to keep your water on, but you do need to engage with us. I think where we have situations that result in water shutoff are those situations in which we have no communication from that household after several attempts of us trying to reach out in various methods. So if you do find yourself in that situation, or you know somebody in that situation, the best thing to do is come in and let's figure out a reasonable payment plan that would work for the household budget. At that time, we can also look at whether that household would be eligible for the discount program. And oftentimes we find that people that come in that are struggling to pay may not be aware of that payment plan. We're able to register them very quickly and help alleviate some of that stress.
I also just want to highlight on the same item that we are wiping clean any delinquent amounts up through May 31st of 2022. I know previously when the council, when we were forbearing from shutoffs and talking about what our options would be in the future, we were considering, what kind of collection could we be looking at and how might we approach that. So I'm grateful to see that our option tonight is to wipe those clean for people who got behind up until that date.
In all that said, assuming there's a majority of the council in support to leave that discussion open, that door open to community partners, from the Affordable Housing Coalition, or any other commissions that have some, maybe want to look at some additional sorts of layers of things to do, that is a door that is open and will remain open? Is that a safe assumption?
Absolutely.
I just said, I'm sorry. I was going to go to a different item.
I just wanted to say thank you for the reminders of what is in place at the moment.
Thank you.
On item 6E, Mayor, we talked a little bit about this at the work session, but I just want to highlight that's for the procurement relating to police patrol vehicles. I know Mayor Pro Tem and I had both asked some questions regarding this, so just to clarify, this is not for any additional vehicles. These are vehicles that already exist that would be replaced and funds that are already existing, correct?
That's correct. These are existing budgeted funds and existing vehicles. The fleet is not being expanded. Actually, when we put together the budget, we thought that we would be replacing 6 vehicles at this cost. Unfortunately, due to cost increases in the automotive industry, we're only able to replace 5. So we're actually holding on to one of our patrol vehicles a little longer than we normally would, and we'll look to replace that one with next year's planned replacements as well.
And then the longevity of these vehicles we'd expect to be not more than 4.5 years.
Yeah, we average between 3.5 and 4.5 years, and by that time, the patrol vehicles usually have between 90 and 95,000 miles on them. They still have some resale value at that point, so that helps us with the purchase of new vehicles. But as you can imagine, those are hard miles too. Those aren't easy highway miles. That's a lot of starting and stopping, and that many miles in that short a period is pretty hard on the vehicles.
Thank you.
I also wanted to call attention to item 6C. The other thing that we're doing with ARPA funds is signing an agreement with the Center for Worker Justice of Eastern Iowa to address wage theft in the community and sort of make it so that they can hire the person to work full-time on that. And just having passed through Labor Day, it's really important that people be paid a fair wage for the work that they're doing.
I agree with Councilor Weiner on that. This wage theft issue is something that's it's a very real issue out there. It's not something that's just been dreamed up and is coming and going. It's out there and will probably be a continuing issue. And I think it's very important that we're going to help with this for the Center for Worker Justice.
Then this seems to have been a very meaty consent agenda. I just wanted to point out one thing, 4A, the Climate Action Commission. I just wanted to make note because there have been a lot of eloquent and emails to us about the possibility of solar 24/7, and I just want to commend the Climate Action Commission for the work that they're putting into researching this proposal. They've been reaching out to a cohort of cities that are also exploring this. They're creating a really thoughtful bank of questions and considerations, and I know are working to provide us with sort of a summary of the work that they've been doing. So I know that time is of the essence in terms of looking at climate action, but I just want to let the public know as well as the commission know that I appreciate what the commission is doing and that they are really digging into this issue and looking at all angles of this to see what are our best steps working forward in a whole and equitable way, to borrow some terminology. So I just wanted to make mention of that.
And finally, or maybe finally, we have a couple of items where a couple of our commissions are amending their bylaws. That's 6F and 6G. It just really highlights the work that so many Iowa citizens do who volunteer to serve their community by serving on a board or commission, and that at the same time they're working to improve those commissions on which they serve by making sure that the rules under which they operate, their bylaws are, and their membership are the best they can be.
Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Weiner,
Yes.
Alter,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Harmson,
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. We are on to item number 9, which is community comment. So this is for any agenda any item that is not on our agenda. If I can get a show of hands of everyone that wants to speak on an item that is not on our agenda. Okay, we're going to start with 3 minutes. I may have to reduce the minutes depending on how many people actually show up. I do see, is there anyone online that wants to speak as well? Please raise your hand. There is a sign-in sheet at the back of the room and also here at the podium. We're going to ask commenters to come at this time. And then please state your name and the city you're from.
You want them in order?
No, you can just come on up and just make sure your name is either written there or you put the sticker in there.
I just
Welcome.
need 1 minute. My name is Monica Maloney-Mitros, and I wanted to thank you for the excluded workers. Thank you very much. I wrote to you. I got an answer back from Sean, and I appreciate that you were able to figure out a way to do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi there. I signed in before and I dropped my name tag in there. I'm Amy Kretkowski, and I live here in Iowa City. And I'm here to express my continued support for keeping the current design of the city park pool. We now have over 900 names on a petition of people who support keeping this design. So I'll give this to you. The City Council is being asked to make a really important decision about the future of City Park Pool that will have a lasting impact on this community. But you really don't have all the information that you need in order to make an informed decision. We know the City Park Pool is old. The consulting firm that was hired by Parks and Rec, paid for with taxpayer dollars, said that the infrastructure of the pool is near the end of its useful life. There's no actual substantive evidence to support this other than the age of the pool and the consultant's inability to find a pool that is older or as old as City Park Pool that's currently operational. Well, if you do a 10-second Google search, you'll find several pools around the country that are older than City Park Pool, including 2 right here in Iowa. We know that the pool needs repairs, but we don't know the full extent of what's wrong with the current pool. The engineering firm that was hired by the consultants, paid for with taxpayer dollars, wrote that the city needs to consult a structural engineer to find out what's wrong with the concrete pool vessel and to get a good idea of exactly what's wrong with the actual concrete of the pool in order to make a better informed recommendation. In the most recent letter that I sent to you, this is on page 121. It's the very first item of the condition of the pools report. It says get a structural engineer to do an evaluation to figure out exactly what's wrong. So we don't really know what's fully wrong with the pool. We've been told, sorry, it's leaking 30,000 gallons a day. That's huge, but we don't know where the leak is coming from. Item 2 on that very same report says that it would cost between $4,000 and $6,000 to perform a leak detection test. Why hasn't that been done? Instead of spending millions and millions of taxpayer dollars to replace a pool that this community clearly loves, shouldn't we first find out what's wrong with it and make the necessary repairs? If it's leaking 30,000 gallons of water a day, shouldn't we make those necessary repairs? Please, don't throw out the pool with the pool water. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Please state your name and your city, please.
Hi, my name is Dan Katalinich, 418 Fifth Avenue, here in Iowa City. Thanks, y'all. I am here this evening before you to request that the council establish an ad hoc committee charged with evaluating the public comment on our pools. I call it the Committee for Aquatic Renewal. to ensure that our Gather Here master plan charge of, this is a quote, to provide truly exceptional commitment to public engagement is realized. So I know all of you weren't seated on council when the Gather Here master plan was adopted. It was almost 5 years ago. I think it was later in September, 5 years ago. But that was the charge, to be engaged with the public in a truly exceptional way. And I think we need that to bring to fruition the renewal of Iowa City Aquatics and make recommendations to council and to Parks and Recreation. The letter from Amy Kretkowski and the undersigned, dated August 11th and 30th, provide abundant documentation of the public comments disparity from the updated master plan of May 25th. And I'd note that when the Gather Here master plan came out, they touted 425 citizens had been involved, and we have over double that have petitioned in conflict to the updated master plan. An ad hoc committee is needed to establish trust in our process of renewing Iowa City Aquatics facilities, particularly in light of, for example, Parks and Recreation recommending the city park pool redesign prior to the end of the period for comment, which was June 4th. We must work together to bring the best result for our community. City Park Pool in particular is a concern, as the updated plan stated that the original aesthetics and character are to be maintained, but the design does anything but maintain the original aesthetics and character of that pool. The big water in the Oak Savannah is what we must maintain. It's a collective gathering place, and it always has been. It was born of a public desire that persevered through the tribulations of World War II and was catalyzed by the death of a child who drowned in Iowa River in City Park. That's what brought it to fruition. The perseverance and compassion has earned the establishment of an ad hoc committee on aquatics renewal. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Please state your name and the city you're from.
My name is Mitzi Reed, and I live in Iowa City. My family recently invested our entire future in Iowa City's promise of a vibrant, livable downtown. We are living our dream within walking distance of wellness and recreation services, groceries, shops, as well as amazing restaurants and entertainment. Now we need you to continue delivering that promise by seeing the truth about the Robert A. Lee Pool. The truth is, affordable access to a downtown pool is critical to promote the life-saving skill and lifelong fitness activity of swimming to serve current residents and attract others to live, visit, and invest their money in and near downtown. The closure plan ignores the facts. The city's grossly overstated costs and severely undercounted pool attendance are used to justify closure, when the fiscally responsible choice is to renovate and revitalize the RAL pool. Public comments confirm residents value aquatics above all other recreation services. They are overwhelmingly against closure of the RAL pool and consolidation of all indoor aquatics to Mercer. It stands to reason they would also oppose a future multi-million-dollar bond required to fund it. Centralized aquatics also directly conflicts with goals to promote geographic equity and prioritize facilities and programs that are equitable, accessible, and responsive to the Iowa City community. No alternate use would attract a wider range of long-term customers downtown or deliver the broad appeal and health benefits that a pool provides. City staff have made it clear they don't intend to retract the closure proposal, despite overwhelming public opposition. So it's up to you, our elected city councilors to stop this contrived plan from eliminating our affordable and accessible means of lifelong health from the heart of Iowa City's downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Please state your name and city.
Ann Stapleton, Iowa City. You'll hear a theme here, but data and community input do not support closing or repurposing the Robert A. Lee Pool. This is clear from the many reports and surveys published this summer. I want to address the damage that diminished hours at REL's pool is already causing and that a closure could worsen. Since January, administrators have reduced access to the pool, which is now only open from 6:15 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 11 to 1. Very difficult hours for families with children and anyone with a traditional daytime work schedule. First, the pool's diminished hours and threatened closure ignore the feedback of Iowa Cityans who have chosen aquatics, as Mitzi said, above all other programs and prefer a downtown central location, finding REL more accessible. Why alienate this broad segment of Iowa City when the purpose of a community center is to bring people together? Second, REL's reduced hours are already preventing many children and adults from taking swim lessons, a necessary life skill that can prevent drowning. REL's pool is now closed every weekday afternoon. That means after school and when many adults finish work. Some parents have been unable to schedule the lessons they need at Mercer, the only pool now open most weeks year-round in the afternoon. To compound this, Mercer is closed during swim meets. This lack of access is unnecessary. REL's pool is functioning well and provides access to all ages and abilities, yet staff have reduced access when children could be learning to swim. Finally, closure of REL would affect all aquatics users in Iowa City by limiting opportunities and leading to potential overcrowding at Mercer when it is open. This includes people who can't drive to Mercer, aquatics users with conditions that cannot tolerate Mercer's cold water, downtown residents who rely on REL's central location, and others. When I use the REL pool, I often encounter more than 15 people in the pool at the time I'm swimming. Why shut the doors to this well-loved, widely used facility? What if, rather than a campaign of closure, Parks and Recs promoted the value of the REL pool, where children and adults can learn the life skill of swimming, where toddlers can begin a trajectory of health that continues through retirement age, and where all Iowa Cityans feel safe and comfortable enough to let their hair down or take their wigs off, as in my case when I was undergoing chemotherapy. Please don't close this community-centric, inclusive pool. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Please state your name and city.
Thank you. My name is Karen Crane, and I am an Iowa City resident, and I'm also a friend of the Robert A. Lee Pool, and I want to start with a compliment. The Parks and Rec Assist program that offers free swim lessons to children, depending on their household income, truly makes me proud to be an Iowa City resident. I believe that every child should be able to swim at a pool or go to Lake McBride and get a paddleboard, or Terry Trueblood and get a paddleboard, or just go to the beach at Lake McBride and be safe. And the Rec Assist program has really promoted that and made that a possibility for so many children, and I applaud that. And I'm not alone in feeling this way. The Gather Here survey showed that 91.8 of those surveyed also believe that every child should have swim lessons. And that's what brings me here today. Because if a pool is closed, if a public pool is closed, there will not be access to swim lessons, which is a life-saving skill. And I'm not alone in feeling that way. I have a stack of signatures, 1,163, but who's counting? And they are all adults from Iowa City. We have stricken some of the names because we did not think that they lived in Iowa City or they were not adults. But 1,163 adults in Iowa City agree that the Robert A. Lee Pool should remain open. We have an additional letter that includes 160 people who are not counted in the 1,163 who will also sign on to this initiative. And in addition to expressing that feeling, I want to point you to the Gather Here community engagement findings. And these findings, which are the city's own, show that 68.7 of the people surveyed have an unfavorable view about having all indoor aquatics moved to Mercer. There's another 10% that's neutral. So when you add those, you have almost 80% of the people surveyed saying they do not want all indoor aquatics at Mercer. And I think that the goal of having swim lessons for all, access to the water for all so that we have safe kids and healthy adults is a great vision for Iowa City. And I know that my friends in the audience join with me in hoping that you will invest in, preserve, and protect the Iowa City downtown pool at Robert A. Lee Aquatic Center. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to give these to you. Thank you.
Welcome. Please state your name and city.
Hi, I'm Sue Prothero. I live in Iowa City. I've been swimming at City Park for over 40 years. I've also lifeguarded, taught swimming lessons, and managed that pool. So I think I have a broader view of its use than almost anyone. I think that the crux of the City Park issue is pool design. The current design is flexible and serves every population I can think of, although I do think that kids and teens would enjoy a water slide, which would be easy enough to add. The proposed design is not flexible, and it does not serve several populations. Older and less proficient swimmers who can't manage 50-meter swim. These people are currently using the 25-yard lap area that is open during open swim times. Aqua joggers and floaters who need deep water. These people are currently using outside lanes during designated lap swim times and the 25-yard area during open swim times. There is no deep water in the proposed design outside of the diving well. So these two groups that I've already mentioned are older people. So we've now hit that population twice with this proposed design. Additionally, intermediate swimmers who need to practice swimming in water over their heads. Swimming lessons. I taught swimming lessons for over a decade, and I'm having trouble picturing how lessons could be accomplished in this pool with the rounded edges. Club swimmers who currently share morning hours with lap swimmers and teens. Like the current pool, the proposed design doesn't have a slide or anything really for teens to do. So that's 6 distinct populations without mentioning the obvious problem of inadequate lap lanes. The importance of getting the City Park pool design right should be obvious. We're building this pool for swimmers as far out as our great-grandchildren at the very least. And if we build the wrong pool, we're stuck with it for a long time. So I would just want to, I have a question, and I don't know if that's appropriate, but I know a lot of us would appreciate understanding the process here. What's next, and how will we be informed of what's next?
And this is an opportunity for you to speak to council.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, that's my question.
Yep. Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Martha Witcher, and I rival you, as I've not even here for the pool, but I have taken advantage of the city pools for about 60-some years. I learned to swim. I taught swimming lessons. I was in synchronized swimming and swim team and lifeguarded and everything. So I'm giving you some of my time for your support. But what I'm actually here for...
Please state your city.
Oh, Iowa City.
Great.
On and off for 60-some years. I have been here for 60-some years, on and off, and the 2 houses I own on College Street that are historic have been in my family for 80 years. I'm here to make a proposal or just just be more aware of what is going on with the radon testing that's required of duplexes here in Iowa City. My qualifications, I have a doctorate in physical therapy, and I'm getting 3/4 of the way through a master's in public health, and I got through biostatistics and epidemiology, and it didn't kill me. So I think that I can decipher some of the information and come up with some good questions for you. I called the public health department. The only person that's qualified to be an expert is Dr. Field. He retired. I went on and tried to find research, and what do you know? The Iowa City Research Project that has been going on since 1998, I believe, something like that. It was published in 2000, was directed by him. Some of that information, I think, is still being incorporated when you are requiring rentals, and it's only single-family homes that have been changed to duplexes right now. They finished phase 1, and it was carried out on women in the same house for the past 20 years, with the duration of testing for 1 year, and the testing equipment located in the sleeping areas or the living area. The conclusions suggested cumulative radon exposure is a significant risk factor for lung cancer in women, but those are the criteria. No one's disputing radon is a severe problem in this country, but my problem with this is how it's being tested. I went through that testing. It was in the basement. City code, I don't have anybody living in my basement. They go there for the laundry. That's it. Testing was done there for 48 hours. That's it. So the research, I have a lot, and I don't have much time. The research doesn't use the same criteria that Iowa City is using for their testing criteria. I think it's skewed. I think it's skewing your phase 2 data that's going in with the APA research that you are in phase 2 of now, and I think it's very unfair to a lot of the people that are out there. Those tenants that are compliant and those landlords that are trying to do the right thing, they might not have the right thing.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi.
Please state your name and city.
I'm Erin McCuskey, and I live here in Iowa City. I'm here today to talk about the city pools and how ignorant this recreation and parks plan is. I wanted to be generous about it, but it creates a huge vacuum where children and adults and everybody has so much less access to pool. I couldn't believe when I read this proposal and I was there that they wouldn't build a regulation pool. If you want to participate in swimming, if you want to learn how to swim, you have to have a regulation pool, because then you can grow a swimmer into a teacher, and then that cycle can participate again and again. And this plan, and I'm so emotional about it because I walked into Mercer Pool in 1988 when I was 14, and I saw how the world swam, which was in meters. And when you get a pool like this, City Park Pool, closing Robert A. Lee Pool, it completely diminishes the possibility of more people learning how to swim. And if you don't have regulation pools where people can participate in recreation programs there, and then also possibly swim team, then you cannot get people to be lifeguards, then you can't get people to teach, and then the pool isn't open. And then they say that the pool isn't gonna be used, and then they're gonna close it. So I'm shocked that no one has talked about the fact that, like, you can't drown on a pickleball court, you know? And you wouldn't build a pickleball court that was 5 by 5 or a baseball field with 10-meter diamonds. You know, you have to build a regulation pool, and I'm so emotional, like so many other people here, because it is the next 50 years of pools. So I know that one thing that we can all agree on is that the city needs to have more pool. I love all the other ideas here. I hope that Mercer isn't, all those plans are happening, but every person should have the right to learn how to swim in the city. And If we don't have that right, we cannot pass on these life skills. And the city should never consider approving anything that isn't a regulation pool. The world swims in meters, America swims in yards. City Park Pool is 8 lanes, 50 meters. That's how the Olympics are. Butterfly was invented in Iowa City. That's been a stroke since 1952 at the Olympics that's competed. So when I was in Seoul, South Korea in 1988, after I saw Mercer, I saw the same pool in Seoul, South Korea.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry I cried so much.
Welcome. Please state your name and city.
Audrey Wiedemeyer, Iowa City. Hello, City Council. I am just here to say my support for keeping the 8-lane, 50-meter city park pool designed the way it is. I've talked a lot over the summer with my fellow pool rats, and we agree that there needs to be more pool and not less pool. And I'd like to applaud the access program that the Parks and Rec did this summer. I saw lots of families that reflected the diversity of our community taking free swim lessons, which is awesome. It would be great to see a pool on the south side and on the west side too that kids could ride their bikes to. I've ridden bikes around Iowa City with kids a lot, and sometimes we end up riding to Terry Trueblood, and you don't want to get in Terry Trueblood the way it is. And it'd be great if there was a pool down there too. And having free swim lessons to any kids at more pools in Iowa City would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address a topic that is not on our agenda? Welcome.
Hello, my name's George Tresnak, Iowa City. I spoke before, at the times I spoke before, I predicted that the opposition to the stated closing of the Robert A. Pool would continue to grow, which it obviously has. I swim there 6 times a week, and I have covered local government in communities in 4 other states besides Iowa City. And everywhere I went, where there were boards and commissions, their purpose was to enhance and to help the council and to improve the confidence in government. This is the first time I saw any place, a body that does exactly the opposite. Every time a rationale for closing a pool is refuted, well, the leadership of the Parks Board comes up with another rationale. Any expertise in maintenance and operation rests with the staff. The volunteers on the board and commission really don't have any expertise. The operation of the pool and the staff could be just as well handled through the staff and Public Works Department in cooperation with the city manager. The question is, where do you actually need a body that's recommending actually closing the pool? The main recommendation, the suggestion that I would have is, since the council has the power to remove this cloud, because there's a lot of people like me that has this concern, that uses the pool every day. All the council has to do is take an action to remove the pool from the purview of the Parks Commission, and any recommendations on maintenance and improvements could be just as well handled through a combination of staff and Public Works in coordination with the city manager. So that's the main suggestion that I have. And with all due apologies in advance, I actually consider it hypocritical for the council to adopt a proclamation. Well, okay.
Thank you. And I saw one other person. Welcome. Please state your name and city.
Good evening. My name is Eric Winborn, and I live at 862 Ryan Court in Iowa City. And I'm here with my neighbors and the neighbors who are watching in at home. And we're here to oppose the rezoning request that's before you that you'll be considering later on tonight. And I had a longer statement, but
Oh, yep, sorry. This is, we'll get to that item in a little bit.
Oh, that'd be even better, because these people were tough acts to follow. And I wouldn't mind talking to you folks later on, right before you're trying to make a decision. So
Great.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks.
All right. Anyone else have any comments before we close our public comment section? And we will end at 7 p.m. Welcome.
Hi. I'm Sandra Armbruster, and I live in Iowa City, and I'm a patron of Mercer and City Park Pool. And I just want to say some things on behalf of City Park to keep that footprint. I just want to share one observation. I go to the pool nearly every day. At Mercer, you know, and it's always enjoyable to watch the kids play. And they go off the board at Mercer maybe 1 to 2 times, maybe 3 times when they're playing in the pool. When they are at City Park, kids go off that board all day long. And I think in this society, we know a lot of kids, you know, they're not outdoors enough, they're not doing things outside. You take your kids to City Park Pool if they know how to swim. And another thing is watching kids do that swim test so they can go off the board is incredible. They will work so hard so they can go off that board. And so, and another thing I did this summer, because I think the footprint of the City Park Pool is not broke and doesn't need to be fixed. So there were these boys, 4 of them, and they were probably 14 years old or so. And so I asked them about if they saw the new pool design and what they thought. We talked about it. And I said, what do you think about the boards, you know, the diving boards? I think they're going to move them or do something different. They thought a lazy river might be nice. They weren't really excited about a slide, which I was surprised. And when I mentioned the boards, I said, what if we didn't have that high dive? In unison, as only 4 teenage boys can do, they all went, no! And so I think one thing to keep in consideration is how it would affect our youth. And I also think the City Park Pool is one of Iowa City's best kept secrets. And I think promotion would be an answer to if you wanted a higher participation rate there. Thank you.
Thank you. So this will be our last comment because we're approaching 7 p.m.
Okay. Hi.
Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Jeanne Park from Iowa City. Honorable Mayor Teague and honorable council members, I just want to thank you for this opportunity. I think the most important things have been highlighted, but I wanted to share a personal story about moving to Iowa City with children who learned to swim in each of the pools. So that we tell our children who have lived here way longer than us, who have just presented as children themselves, that what we do with something when it gets old and needs repair is to demolish it, fill up the landfill while there's a climate crisis, and then shop for all the bells and whistles of a new pool as consumers. I'm not sure what the children are going to walk away with their memory, where our son learned to count from 12 underwater to 13, 14, and self-motivated in that space at City Park Pool, the long space, where he could himself say, oh, I want to get to that park. I want to get to that part. I want to get to that mark. I want to get to that mark, because there was space for that, and there was a lane for that. So I think the subtle things that we're not designing for or accounting for in terms of like, what are our economic resources? They're limited, supposedly. Is where are we going to choose our values and our priorities looking at 2025, 2030, 2035, and so on. If we have limited resources, where are we going to place those priorities for the entire community? I don't know that City Park needs an overhaul. That's, I don't know how many millions. Probably, I don't know what the demolition budget alone is. So it would seem that it would be worth our time and energy to explore what would be benefit to the entire city, thinking about an ecosystem instead of swimming here, you know. And also, the other thing that really struck me is I did a little Google search, and swimming is the number 4 recreational, you know, thing that people do in the United States. It's number 4. And then on top of that, that it has safety against drowning. It's a life safety skill. And I've seen, as everyone else has said here, and Erin touched me so deeply because I've seen her at the pool with her babies. I've seen her babies grow up here at the pool. And you've seen all the women who've swam here for generations. So I think to tell our children that what the city will do is just demolish that out and replace it seems kind of, I don't know. Anyway, so it would be really wonderful if there was increased transparency and also taxpayer transparency for budget allocation, or what are the in and out possibilities for where we can spend this funding in neighborhoods that may really need to learn how to swim so kids could be safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. And thank you to everyone that have given comment today. I did want to get a motion to accept correspondence. Could I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Burgess, seconded by Weiner. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Item number 10 is planning and zoning matters. 10A is rezoning Cardinal Heights. Ordinance conditionally rezoning approximately 27.68 acres of property located east of Camp Cardinal Boulevard and west of Camp Cardinal Road from interim development research park, zoned to low-density multifamily zone with a planned development overlay. And I'm going to open up the public hearing. And I'm going to welcome our staff. Danielle, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Danielle Sitzman, Neighborhood and Development Services. This is a rezoning application to you this evening for a property located, as outlined here in the white dash line, located between Camp Cardinal Boulevard and Camp Cardinal Road, approximately where Deer Creek Road cuts into it from the west. This land is proposed to be rezoned to an overlay plan district and a underlying RM12 or, let me get caught up here on my slides. Low-density multifamily zone. The purpose of the rezoning is to allow for a residential development, including several lots, 22 lots of duplex for duplex housing, 1 lot for a fourplex development, and 1 lot for an apartment with approximately 30 dwelling units in it. The site does contain regulated sensitive features, including wetlands, woodlands, and slopes, and due to those impacts to those, it does require a sensitive areas development plan, so that is the trigger tonight for this plan development overlay. Sometimes when we see cluster development in an area with sensitive features, there are waivers to the underlying base zoning requirements that are required to accommodate that. In this case, that is not so. They're not requesting any waivers from the base underlying zoning of RM12. This exhibit shows the property again bounded in the white line with the surrounding existing zoning in the neighborhood. As I mentioned, this would be a proposed mix of duplex and multifamily residential, which is seen in the surrounding neighborhood in other similar zones. To the west, there is RM12 already zoned. To the south, there's actually a more intensive event center planned. To the east, there is also some RM12 zoning for an apartment, 2 apartment buildings. And then also to the northwest, there's a mix of housing types, including slightly more dense housing, RM20, and also RS12. Directly to the north, there's a Loop Street development with 0 lot houses that look a lot like duplexes, but are on individual lots as well. As I mentioned, this is a planned development overlay rezoning that includes a preliminary sensitive areas plan. They've also filed for a preliminary plat, which I won't present tonight because it needs to catch up. It would be by resolution, so it would be presented on the 3rd reading of the rezoning, but it is a detail that's included in a lot of the drawings that were included tonight. So it does show you the proposed layout of the street network. As I mentioned, along the southern border, there would be a through street connecting Camp Cardinal Boulevard to Camp Cardinal Road, and then a cul-de-sac and a loop street off of that to accommodate the residential development of the duplex lots, the townhome lots, and the apartment complex. Because this is an OPD rezoning, there's an extensive set of criteria that staff does look at in addition to the general zoning criteria, so we'll go through those tonight. The 2 general criteria are consistency of the comprehensive plan, first of all, and compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood. In this case, the comprehensive plan, the main general comprehensive plan is the plan that we would look at. There's no district plan in this area. And the comprehensive plan identifies this area in that kind of taupe color as appropriate for 8 to 16 dwelling units per acre. The actual proposed zoning is much lower because of the sensitive areas that are present and need to be avoided. It actually is closer to just 3 units per acre. As I mentioned, there's a diversity of residential housing types, preservation of sensitive areas, and a focus on a through street to complete the network of streets and as well as to accommodate pedestrians moving through the neighborhood as well. The comprehensive plan itself does discourage cul-de-sacs, so I mentioned there's 1 cul-de-sac proposed as well as that through street and loop street. However, there are instances where cul-de-sacs are actually a preferred alternative, especially when topography and sensitive areas are in play. So speaking about the compatibility with the existing neighborhood, as I mentioned, to the north there's existing single-family 0 lot line development, and then development to the northwest, which is continuing to occur. There's also proposed development to the east along Gathering Place Lane, potentially in the future. But overall, it's generally a residential neighborhood in this part of town. So as I mentioned, there's additional criteria that staff reviews for planned development reviews, and I'll go through those here next. The first has to do with land use proposals and density. In this case, it is a single-family attached housing style, as I mentioned, including duplexes, a 4-plex, and a multifamily apartment. It is within the density allowance and does provide for a mix of housing types in this neighborhood. The proposed plan continues kind of the existing pattern of single-family attached development and adds to that mix in the overall neighborhood. Speaking about design, the mass scale and general layout, as I mentioned, this is predominantly house scale buildings, those duplexes and the 4-plexes, which would look like townhomes. In addition, the multifamily development, which would be located on the east top right of the slide, is subject to the multifamily design standards. There is no waiver to height being requested tonight, so that would be limited to 3 stories or 35 feet in height. When we look at the garages and the layout of the street network to accommodate the duplexes, our code does regulate the appearance of those duplexes, and that would be reviewed as site plans are developed. As I mentioned, there are sensitive areas that are identified with this sensitive areas development plan, and we do go through an analysis to make sure that the areas that are required to be protected meet our ordinances. This is a rendering of that 3-story potential multifamily development. As I mentioned, that this would have a site plan review, so all of the multifamily site development standards would be reviewed when the actual development of this building occurs. Also going through the open space requirements, there are no waivers being requested tonight, so all of the baseline requirements for private and public open space would need to be met with this development. That is essentially 300 square feet of rear yard private open space per unit in a duplex, and as well as the base standard of 10 square feet per bedroom for multifamily. So those would be checked at each time of a development of those lots. And then there's also a requirement for the public open space based on the acres of the development that's determined at final plat. That can be satisfied either by dedication of parkland or fee in lieu. In regard to the surrounding neighborhood, as I mentioned, this is a continuation of that development pattern. There are actually 2 outlots proposed for a total of 17 acres of land not to be developed. It would include a protective conservation easement over those 17 acres. And there's actually quite a bit of separation because of that. Along the north boundary of this property, there's a stream and a lot of protected areas, and so the separation between this development and the next development to north is actually quite wide. Staff does find that the development will not impact neighboring residences more than a conventional neighborhood would do, which is the criteria that we use for a planned development review. And then finally, talking about streets and utilities, this property can be served by both sanitary sewer and water. As I mentioned again, access to the site will be provided by Deer Creek Road, which is a through street, which is helping to complete the street network in this part of the city, as well as potentially providing a future connection to the south along Camp Cardinal Road. This development will not be building that segment of Camp Cardinal Road, but there is a condition proposed to ensure that they commit funds towards that eventual completion. Talking just a little bit about stormwater, we had quite a few questions and concerns raised about how stormwater would be handled. This exhibit is meant to show the 2 stormwater sheds and where water would drain to from the 2 parts of this development. Essentially, the dark blue lines drain to the northwest, and the light blue lines drain to the southeast. To the northwest, there's an existing stormwater detention basin, and so stormwater would flow into that basin. That basin has been designed to accommodate runoff from this development, so it is properly sized for that. And then the light blue lines draining to the southeast are going into a new detention basin that would be created on the southeast portion of the site. There were concerns regarding the operation of that existing basin that staff from Public Works did investigate. They went out to check to make sure that the facility was operating as it was designed as far as the outlets between the basin and the stream, ensuring that there were no blockages and there was no evidence of excessive erosion occurring. So we did have staff go out and actually do a field visit and verify that that was the case. And Public Works has also reviewed the preliminary stormwater exhibits that have been presented so far. Any final construction drawings for the establishment of the new basin on the southeast side would be included in the final plat. And as far as sensitive areas, there are sensitive areas on this site. We do have a sensitive areas ordinance. The City of Iowa City regulates several types of features. And on this site, that would include slopes, wetlands, and woodlands. And the purpose of the sensitive areas ordinance is to define and permit the reasonable use of properties that contain such features, allowing for development and at the same time protecting those resources from damage. So due to the proposed disturbance of wetlands on the site, there is a level 2 design review required, and that's a part of the sensitive areas development plan that is being presented tonight to you tonight. 60% of the area of the site will actually be contained in those 2 outlets that I mentioned. So 60% of all of this proposed development would be in an area protecting those sensitive features. So as I mentioned, there are slopes that are impacted. We have a steep, steeper, and steepest designation for slopes. This site contains the steeper and steepest of slopes that we regulate. We have quantified those and ensured that the steeper slopes, which can be impacted, are not impacted more than the allowable percentage by our sensitive areas ordinance. And then the steepest slopes, which we call protected slopes, are actually usually never allowed to be impacted. However, there are two cases when they still can be, and then that's the instance in this development. So the steepest slopes, our protected slopes, are only allowed to be impacted if the slope itself is a man-made slope or if it's necessary for infrastructure. So we've evaluated that, and the slope protection is adequate for our ordinances. And then also talking about wetlands, there are wetlands in existence on the site. The applicant did have a specialist review those wetlands to identify their location and their fitness, I should say. There are methods for protecting wetlands in our ordinances. Typically, we require just a baseline buffer around them, but that buffer can be reduced in some places as long as it's averaged out to accommodate the wetland, the quality of the wetland where it needs to be. That's called buffer averaging. So in this case, there is some buffer averaging being requested, as well as buffer reduction. And when buffer reduction occurs, then basically we require compensatory mitigation. So basically the impact to the wetland is made up for by establishing or improving a wetland elsewhere. In this case, they're actually going to do the improvement of the wetlands on site. So it's not going into a wetland bank some other place in the environment, it's actually occurring on the site. And so we've evaluated the amount of land they're impacting with their buffer averaging and their compensatory mitigation to ensure they meet the ordinances. And as far as woodland retention, they are actually sufficiently protecting the woodland resources per our ordinance. So next steps. Like I said, this is a rezoning step. There will be a preliminary plat. I've not highlighted that in green here because that'll be at a future meeting, catching up to the third reading of this ordinance. But then after that, they would do final platting. As I mentioned, that would be the construction drawing review segment of this. And then because there are sensitive areas, there would actually be a final sensitive area review and site plan review by staff as well as building permits. So the Planning and Zoning Commission does recommend approval of this zoning application to you tonight. They did so at their August 3rd meeting by a vote of 6-0. There was one proposed condition by staff, as I mentioned, that the contribution of funds for the future upgrading of Camp Cardinal Boulevard and the traffic circle proposed to be designed as part of that. They did support staff's condition, and so that comes to you tonight as well. The conditional zoning agreement for this property has been signed, and a protest petition has been filed, which was in your packet. As of 5 o'clock this evening, that protest petition did not include enough signatures to change the threshold of the vote. And that concludes staff report, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Hearing no questions.
I'm just trying to formulate one.
Oh, okay.
Can you speak a little bit more, because I was struck in the presentation about normally the recommendation is to not use cul-de-sacs except in certain cases. And so I wanted to hear a little bit more about why it is that there's, in this case, a cul-de-sac is being recommended or approved. Or
So in the comprehensive plan, we generally signal what is the best intention and the best kind of design, but we always leave a caveat for just in case, because never say never. There are times when putting a street through something would actually be more destructive than simply allowing for a dead-end street or cul-de-sac to be the design choice. So typically, the comprehensive plan would discourage cul-de-sacs and emphasize stubbing a street so that it could connect to a future extension of another road in the future. However, this development really doesn't have that opportunity in a lot of ways. To the north, there's nothing to connect to because it's already developed as a loop street with no way to stub into this. Plus, it would be impacting the creek and the trees if it were to go to the north. There's already an east-west connection included in this development, and there's not really a good opportunity for a southern connection. So As often as the instance, the road tends to follow the ridge line and the development comes off of that. And to get as much as development as possible without further impacting the sensitive areas, the best choice oftentimes is a cul-de-sac. So a little bit of a road, but not a connection to something else. So that's the caveat in this case.
Danielle, I have just some maybe kind of backup contextual questions to really put you on the spot. So you very well spoke about the compliance with the sensitive areas ordinance relating to the slopes and relating to the wetlands and the woodlands. And maybe if you could just kind of maybe very briefly explain like what actions are prohibited or allowed, like what does that mean if it's complying with the sensitive areas ordinance for each of those three things?
So the sensitive areas ordinance is intended to identify things that should be protected and then to put limits on how much of a disturbance is allowable and at what point can you do no more disturbance than that. So depending on the resources, there's different limits. So wetlands are protected with a buffer. Woodlands tend to be a calculation of % impact. And slopes, like I said, there's steep, steeper, and steepest, and you can do something slightly different depending on the steepness. So there's a point with a slope where we say absolutely zero impact is allowed except for these two things, and in this case, those two things are in play. So with the steepest slope, the protected slopes, in this case, it would be they're steep slopes because they're man-made slopes. They're not a natural slope that we're trying to protect. Or there's someplace where a critical piece of infrastructure must go, and so it's kind of a trade-off between, okay, what's better, to put the infrastructure someplace else where it's less efficient or to put it through the slope where it's a little bit of a risk, but it's not somebody's house that's sitting there on a very steep slope. For wetlands, like I mentioned, there's buffering that's required, but looking at the health of the wetland is important. So sometimes a buffer needs to be wider in certain spots for the wetland to really be ecologically healthy, and it can be a little bit narrow in other spots. So if it's a less quality part of the wetland, maybe they can average out those more critical parts with the less critical parts. Also, as a kind of very last case, if the wetland must be impacted, as long as you're establishing more wetlands someplace else, so banking it up someplace else, that's acceptable. We generally ask for, if you're going to impact it, though, it's not a one-to-one trade-off. You impact some amount and you build back even more. Preferably, it's on-site, and that's the case here. So they're doing an on-site improvement of the wetland, taking away a little bit of it and reestablishing more of it in another place.
And so when you say the evaluation is done, and this was at a higher level because of the degree of sensitive areas, did I understand that right?
Yes. So we ask for the developer to actually hire a specialist, a scientist who knows how each one of these resources is ecologically maintained and can go out and do field site and then help their engineers draw up a plan that shows on the plan where those areas are, and then do the math and the area calculations to let us know by each part of our ordinance what they're impacting. So staff reviews that exhibit as prepared by the developer specialist and their engineers.
Thank you.
Yes.
Danielle, in these drawings, are that long cul-de-sac it's oriented north-south. Usually that's pointing up, but anyway, yeah, that's probably better. So with the construction work that's required to create that cul-de-sac and the grades north of the road termination there will tie into existing grades further to the north simply by a graded slope. Is that not correct? In other words, there aren't any retaining walls.
Sure, you're right. There's no engineered
transition there.
Transition, right? It's a stream bed to the north, and then it goes down to the stream and then back up to the development to the north.
Right.
But right.
Okay. Thanks.
Grading, or in fact, by just not touching it, leaving the existing grades there as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
So there were some concerns expressed in some of the correspondence that we read about erosion along that stream bed. Is that a part of this particular development, or is that part of the already existing development to the north?
So if neighbors are seeing erosion occurring now, it would be from existing development in some way. So that's what we went, actually, the staff went out to double check, that they were not seeing unexpected amounts of erosion. Erosion is a natural process, so it's going to occur. The purpose of our ordinance is to limit the impact of development to not create more erosion than would naturally occur. And so the stormwater systems are engineered to hold water and release water at a rate that's roughly equivalent to what it was before development happened. So because that existing regional detention basin is already built, has been functioning for several years, we went out to double check to make sure there wasn't some failing part of that was perhaps contributing to more erosion than we would expect to see. The reports we got back from the field was that the creek was actually in pretty great shape. There wasn't a observable significant amount of erosion, and there's a lot of vegetation actually helping to stabilize that stream. So that would be something that we would continue to look at, but we would expect the engineering on that to anticipate those as part of the design, and so that it should function as it's designed.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I understand the development team is here. I don't know if you all have any comments you wanted to make to council. Welcome.
Hello. My name is Jason Walton. I'm the Navigate Homes Development Vice President, and I would just like to thank the Mayor Teague Council for your time here, and especially thank the planning staff. This has been a very difficult project to work on, as you've probably heard during the staff report on the extensive hills and wetlands and stuff that we've had to navigate around to make this project work. We've been working in that area for a good many years now, prior to my employment at Navigate Homes. And it's been exciting to see it come together. It's a wonderful part of the city. We just finished up Cardinal Point West Part 3. We're excited to get homes started in there. The staff report that I received from the planning staff here at the city, I've read through, and I agree with it 100%. And I would just ask on behalf of Navigate Homes that the council would approve the plan as is, as allowed by the city ordinances that are in place. And that's all I got. Does anybody have any questions for me? Technical questions, I have my engineer here, so don't go down that road and try to ask me those type of questions, because you won't get a very good answer from me.
I have some questions just kind of about the site layout, and I think I understand the topography as it goes. There's, as Danielle was saying, the road kind of along the ridgeline cul-de-sac at the north, and then slopes down to the creek, and then kind of up into not on your property, on the next property, kind of goes up into the backyards. So looking at what we have in our packet includes the preliminary plat, and I think it's the sensitive area overlay that includes the topo lines that I'm looking at. And it also has kind of the edge of the existing woodlands demarcated on there. Mm-hmm. So I just want to kind of go through like some distances of what we're looking at. Because I think we have the northernmost edge of the cul-de-sac and what will be platted when the plat's approved lots would be, and then kind of a conservation area or an area that will not be developed that includes some of those more sensitive areas and the existing woodlands. Do you happen to know kind of the distance from that northernmost lot edge at the end of the cul-de-sac, kind of at the top of the bulb, to your northern property line? It's kind of a weird shape because it goes a lot further out as you go east, but I'm just looking at kind of like where the closest homes to the north would be. Do you have a sense of that?
So from lot to lot, I think it's lot to back door, and Brian did bring some of that information tonight, kind of anticipating this question. Mm-hmm. He's got it with us. I don't know if he's got what specifically you're talking about. We have about 400 feet from, I believe it's from house to house, if I remember off of memory, from house to house. That's not lot line to lot line, that's house to house. So that's the view shed. It was what you got is 400 feet. And there's a good number of mature trees in between there, along with the creek that was mentioned before. And there's quite a bit of trees down there. Brian and I actually walked it last week, and it was difficult to get through there. There is a lot of growth down there. I was really surprised at how well, just how much, being from Iowa, living out on the farms and being around a lot of creeks and a lot of this type of stuff, I couldn't believe how well and just how much was growing. I mean, there's grass growing down in the creek. There's trees growing up on the banks. I lived on 50 acres here not too long ago where my creek was in far worse shape. It was all natural. But this thing is really holding it. I was really surprised at how well. If you have erosion, you don't have trees growing out of the banks of the, I mean, there's some there, obviously. I'm no expert there, but just from what I witnessed and what I've actually seen, you know, being out and around, it's pretty well established. So there's a good amount of trees there. There's a good amount of space there. We're trying to conserve as much as we can in that, which we have. And a lot of it's due to the sensitive areas and whatnot, but it also brings just a lot of appeal to the area, and people that will live there will truly enjoy that space as well. So Brian might have the technical, more technical, like lot line to lot line, or maybe some more measurements that he can bring up and address and maybe answer that question a little more thoroughly than I can at this point. But
Well, just while you're here, Jason, just or you're not planning to disturb anything in that, I guess we'd say lot line to lot line, because obviously up to the home, there's probably going to be some amount of yard.
Right.
But in that, from lot line to lot line, are you taking out any trees or changing
absolutely
the
not.
slope?
Well, I should say, we will absolutely not disturb any more trees than what we have to, because, you know, keeping the integrity of the timber that's there is important to us on several fronts. The most obvious one from a business standpoint is that it helps sell the houses. People love big mature trees in the back of their house, myself included. There is one spot that there has been some trees already removed years before, prior to my employment here. There was actually, I was working with Southgate at the time, not for them, but when we were working on the Grove project across the street to the west. And at that time, we had gotten that Grove approved for buildings, and so they went ahead and started the sewer line tree removal there. So those trees are down. There will be some disturbance for that sewer line, but any of the major trees are already down there. They've been down for about 3 or 4 years, I think, at least. And then we do plan on replacing some trees down there. Decent trees, they're listed of what we're going to plant to kind of replenish the area there once we go through there. But we'll do the minimal possible, because it's in our interest as well.
And that last part you're talking about is along that sanitary sewer easement?
Yes.
All right, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Other than that, we're going to do everything we can to minimize any tree removal on any of the lots. There's only going to be tree removal where absolutely necessary, and we're permitted. We will absolutely not touch anything that we're not permitted. So.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
All right. We're going to open up for public discussion on this item. Oh, did you have a comment?
230 feet from the property line to property line.
Thank you.
30 feet.
All right, we're going to open it up for public discussion. If you're online, we'll ask that you raise your hand, but if you're in person, remember to sign in, but also give us your name, your first and last name, and the city you're from. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you again for letting me appear, and I guess third time's the charm. And my name is Eric Winborn. I live at 862 Ryan Court, and we live, directly beside the project. The letter of opposition you have in the file really expresses our opposition well. And thank you, members of City Council, for the excellent questions. And I'll make a few clarifying comments. First, there was some discussion about the creek. Our homeowners association owns over half the creek. And we own half of the watershed below that hill. So it's not as though we don't have an interest in that watershed because it's our homeowners association property. And second, what we really oppose are the 4 duplexes that are planned to be built on the hillside overlooking the watershed, the sensitive areas, the wetlands, and so on. And we wouldn't be here tonight if that plan or project didn't include the 4 duplexes. If the 4 duplexes are taken out, the owner hasn't suffered any damages. They're building 18 duplexes, the multi-unit complex, and the townhomes. And then there was a lot of discussion about the cul-de-sac. Both the comprehensive plan and the city code is very clear in discouraging and having a policy against cul-de-sacs. Once again, we wouldn't be here tonight if that cul-de-sac wasn't approved that feeds the north end of the project. And that cul-de-sac will allow those 4 duplexes to be built on the side of the hill, destroying 40-year-old mature trees, building over sensitive woodlands or sensitive areas, and being built over our creek and our watershed. Now, the staff report extensively references negative impacts. It talks about negative impacts on sensitive areas, woodlands, wetlands, steep and critical protected slopes. But then the report says it meets all the minimum standards. So I guess I asked the city council, does Iowa City want to be known as a city of minimum standards, or do we want to be known as a protecting the environment? You know, once again, like I said, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for those 4 duplexes. So I'm confident the city council will side with the comprehensive plan and the city code in really recognizing our precious natural resources. And I'm available for any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Online is Dan. I'm going to welcome Dan at this time. Welcome. You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, welcome.
Good evening. My name is Dan Fishburne. I reside at 832 Ryan Court with my wife Cindy, and we live in one of the building that is probably closest to the proposed development. And I would agree with Eric Winborn's comments and would join in those. When we purchased our home almost 4 years ago, we realized that this area to our south might eventually be developed. But in looking around Iowa City and the way that the city has been developed and the protection of green space, we felt confident that the city would hopefully maintain that hillside behind our home to the south. And what we are objecting to are the 2 buildings, four duplex units, being built on what is shown on the plat as lots 6 and 7 at the north end of the duplex. And we're requesting that the plan be modified to eliminate those 2 buildings and preserve the hillside. There was some testimony that indicated that it's 400 feet from building to building, but it's not 400 feet on flat ground. It's 400 feet at an angle going up in the air, which means that those 2 buildings will be much closer to our unit than 400 feet. And on top of that, they're going to be looking down on top of us. The other thing that I think, which Eric didn't touch on, I think our neighborhood group feels that we filed a sufficient number of protests in our petition to require more than a majority vote by the city council. And I think that Mr. Winborn could speak to that because he actually filed the documents with the city clerk. And our understanding from the initial documents we got from the city way back at the start of this is that the adjacent owners, for purposes of your ordinance, were all of the owners of the duplexes along Ryan Court, and there are 7 or 8 of those, and a significant number of those people have joined in a protest. So I'm not quite sure where the comment from staff came that there were not sufficient number of protests filed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address this topic? Welcome, please give your name and the city you're from.
I'm serious.
Hi.
Pleased to meet you.
Go right ahead.
Okay. My name is Mark Godlinski. I live at 834 Ryan Court in Iowa City. So I live in between Eric and Dan, who just spoke. And in 1958, we moved to Iowa City, and we lived across, next to Ralston Creek out on the east side of Iowa City. At that time, it was a dry creek. Well, a few years later, after development started in that area, we experienced some significant flooding in our backyard. So that's what I grew up with. And I don't want that flooding to happen in my backyard at my new house on Ryan Court. We had talked a little bit about the Camp Cardinal Creek that goes back behind the properties, and I'd love to invite any of you that would like to take a tour to come out there and see the ravine that we have. I was out there a few weeks ago and walked down to the bottom of the creek bed, and the erosion along the sides and the height of the ground, I was at least 2 to 3 feet above the top of my head when I'm standing down there. So it's not this little creek going through the neighborhood. There's a significant amount of erosion that we can point out to you. Well, I mean, that's affected by things we really can't control, whether it's rainfall or water flowing down from slopes, or in our case, the retention pond that is on the west side of Camp Cardinal. We can't control any of those, but our homeowners association is responsible for that creek when it crosses our property. The one thing we could control is to try to reduce anything that might affect that flow of water or the erosion or the drainage. And I totally agree with the idea of pushing back on that north cul-de-sac, moving that off the slopes and moving that further south. I think that would allay our fears about what could possibly impact our creek area. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Welcome.
My name is Steve Hedlund. I live at 864 Ryan Court. I would like to echo my opposition to how the zoning is as it stands. I would support the removal of 2 to 4 of those most northerly duplexes. The area north of them, that slope, is not a slope, it's a ledge. If you go out and look at it, you can't believe how steep that is. And placing homes on that downslope or ledge, like I like to call it, it's going to create erosion problems. It's not a good idea, and it's taking out many old growth trees. The whole project is going to remove 12 acres of trees. The buffer zone is a little over 16 yards. I make putts longer than that on the golf course. So I would strongly support removal of that those most northernly duplexes. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone online or in person that want to give any more comments on this agenda item? Seeing no one, before I close the public hearing, I just want to ask council if they're inclined to vote in accordance with the P&Z recommendation. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. Could I get a motion to give first consideration?
So move, Thomas.
Second, Burgess.
Council discussion.
I just want to thank the advocacy of the neighbors and, asking a lot of questions and pointing out their concerns. And I just appreciate staff explaining and the developer explaining kind of how we mitigate those types of concerns and look to make sure that this would be constructed in a way that can't impact, for example, can't cause flooding on the adjacent property, and that we have engineers who evaluate that and make sure that that is the case and review that internally. So just thank you, everyone, for your thoroughness and care.
I also appreciate the neighbors' comments on this, because it's certainly things that I'd thought about and we always talk about as far as the effect on the environment and especially slopes and sensitive areas. And I do have concerns about. I think you've raised some very good concerns, and I appreciate the fact that it's not the entire project that you're against. It's very specific, those duplexes. So I'm inclined to kind of listen to those concerns and consider those.
I do think the concerns were valid that when it comes in relationship to the stormwater specifically. There is an additional stormwater detention basin, I think, which is good. I do hear all the residents really appreciate you coming and bringing up these concerns so that when this does, if this should be approved and it moves forward, I think we'll be paying extra attention to just make sure that some of the things that you anticipated or you've mentioned as far as flooding, no one wants their home to be flooded, absolutely not. But make sure that that is carefully executed in this project.
I'm struck by how knowledgeable the neighbors are and how much they've aligned with actually the studies that have been done to, what is allowed, what is not allowed, and in order to make sure that the very concerns that you have are assuaged. I know that it's important, especially you were talking about being in a homeowners association who is responsible for some of the watershed and whatnot. And so I think that I echo what the mayor said, that we will be paying particular attention if this goes forward to make sure that everything is executed in a way that you're not left holding the bag.
Well, I know in my time that I've served on the Planning and Zoning Commission and on the City Council, I've always had a deep concern about how projects affect neighboring properties. And in looking at this project, it does appear to me that given the distance that it will exist between your properties and the proposed development, which, depending how you want to measure it, it's somewhere between 300 to 400 feet, coupled with the fact that what is being proposed are essentially the same type of building as those that you live in. It's not this is not a large, bulky project at the top of the hill. It's very similar to the houses you live in yourselves. In some ways, almost mirror what you have. And so these will be houses that will be, consistent with the character of your street and your neighborhood. That, coupled with the distance between the two developments and the fact that it will be, for the most part, vegetated with existing woodland, seems to me to have satisfactorily addressed the transition or coexistence, if you will, between what's being proposed and where you live now. I understand, and I would no doubt be like you in that I would be attached with the existing condition. I mean, there's a natural slope, woodland there that you've been living with for some time. At the same time, it seems to me that what's being proposed here will not dramatically influence your experience from your property.
Could we have clarification from staff on the protest petition question?
Sure. What's your question?
One of the public commenters, I think Mr. Fishburne, indicated that he thought there were sufficient signatures to elevate the threshold for approval.
I've been monitoring that, and as of last Friday, they needed an additional 151,000 square feet. They had achieved about 61 or 62,000 square feet and had 151,000 square feet to go. I've been monitoring it throughout the day now that to see if there are any additional protests. It's my understanding that no more came in. And so they did not meet that threshold. I understood the one commenter to say something to the effect that the only properties that would matter would be the houses that border the property to the north. I don't know where he would have gotten that idea. That is definitely not how our ordinance works.
Okay, so just to be clear, this is a simple majority?
Simple majority will be required to carry the day.
Thank you, Eric.
Could you explain just a little bit more about, you said, how does this work, just for those of us that are new?
Sure. So the question about the protest has been whether or not at least 20% of the property, not 20% of property owners, people who control 20% of the property within 200 feet of the development wish to protest. If that threshold is achieved, then a 3/4 vote, that is 6 out of you 7 council members, would be required to accomplish the rezoning. In the absence of that, as Councilor Burgess mentioned, simple majority carries the day.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other comments from councilors?
The only thing that I'd add is sort of analogous to what Councilor Thomas said, is that I was struck, in addition to everything else that's been said, which I really appreciate, by one of the members of P&Z who drove out there and looked at the developments and said that it really would be a mirror development very similar to the one that currently exists on Ryan Court, and fit in very well. That's all.
All right, if no more comments by council, roll call, please.
Alter?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Harmson?
Yes.
Taylor?
No.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Weiner?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1. Could I get a motion to accept correspondence?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Weiner, seconded by Alter. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Item number 10B is rezoning 518 Bowery Street. This ordinance conditionally rezoning approximately 1,470 square feet of property located at 1518 Bowery Street from high-density multifamily residential zone with a historic district overlay to neighborhood commercial zone with a historic district overlay. I'm going to open the public hearing, and I'm going to welcome Danielle.
Thank you again, Mayor. As you mentioned, this is a rezoning of just a single property at 518 Bowery Street, located here in the white outline on the southeast side of downtown, essentially. The applicant is requesting this rezoning to establish a coffee shop at this location. This property has a long history. This was one of the original commercial locations before there was such a thing as zoning in Iowa City, and it has remained commercial activity throughout the years until just recently when it was vacant for long enough that it was no longer to be considered a grandfathered property, and then it ran afoul of our zoning. So the requested action tonight is to rezone this to a zoning district that encourages and it would make it simpler to do neighborhood commercial in this location. As I mentioned, 518 Bowery, this actually has an overlay zoning on it for historic as well. It's a local historic landmark. Shown here, kind of the barrel roof might look familiar to some folks. So it's currently zoned RM44, which is a high-density multifamily district, which is what is around it. That brown color is the neighborhood around it, which is all also RM44. They're seeking to rezone it to CN1 neighborhood commercial, as I said, to reestablish a commercial use there as a coffee shop. This building was built sometime in the mid-1800s, 1856 to 64, as far as we can trace back on a lot of our records. And then over the years has maintained a commercial use off and on through special exceptions or because it was grandfathered in. And as I mentioned, for a period of time recently, it became vacant and it lost the ability to go back and ask for a special exception to allow the establishment of a commercial use. So the rezoning, as I mentioned, is a way forward for continuing to encourage neighborhood commercial. CN1 is a district that allows for and encourages neighborhood shopping areas conveniently located in neighborhoods, embedded in neighborhoods, promoting smaller size commercial uses to serve just essentially the neighborhood around it, and to therefore not have a large impact on the neighborhood fabric. The current RM44 zoning district actually makes this property non-conforming for a lot of the zoning dimensional standards, so things like lot requirements, frontage, setbacks, things like that. It's in its current zoning districts, it's not conforming with. Switching it to the CN1 zoning actually alleviates a lot of those non-conforming situations because the CN1 zoning doesn't have those standards. So it's improving the fit of this development with the zoning class that it would be designated as. Nothing would change in regards to the historic designation. That overlay district gets carried forward regardless. This is just an exhibit showing the kinds of uses allowed in CN1. So to do a rezoning, just the two simple criteria in this case: consistency with the comprehensive plan and with compatibility with the neighborhood. As far as our comprehensive plan, it definitely encourages and acknowledges that there are these situations out there. The district plan actually mentions this and several other properties that were historically commercial embedded in residential neighborhoods. So it's definitely encouraging goals with the comprehensive plan to rezone it. And actually, the RM44 district probably puts an incentive for redevelopment of a site that we would be at cross purposes with trying to preserve it for historic purposes. So it's a good opportunity to move this property into a more conforming situation and a more appropriate and transparent zoning classification. So like I said, this is compatible with the existing neighborhood just by its size and by the fact that it really cannot kind of grow beyond serving the neighborhood. It's constrained in its size. It's small. It doesn't have a lot of parking. So it's really just going to serve the immediate neighborhood around it. Talking a little bit about the parking, because it is a historic property, they have the ability to ask for a special exception to reduce their parking load. That's great. That's some of the flexibility that we built in recently to encourage adaptive reuse of historic properties. So we expect they'll probably make use of that, but really not intended to generate a lot of vehicle traffic to the site. People probably more likely to walk or bike to pick up coffee. So as I said, this has a long history, so I was actually able to build this slide out a little bit more than I typically would. We're down there at the bottom in the green section, though, just talking about a rezoning tonight. And then if they need to do anything to rehab the building, there would be building permits. They're not intending to do anything to the exterior, but if they were someday to make exterior changes, that would go to historic preservation because of the zoning overlay for historic. So they did hold a good neighbor meeting. Nobody attended. Nobody had great concerns about this that we heard about. Staff did recommend one condition with some hours of operation. And actually, the Planning and Zoning Commission chose to alter staff's recommendation and make the hours of operation a little bit earlier in the morning. Not being a morning person, I don't really anticipate being there at 6 a.m., but wanted to give the business the maximum flexibility to operate. And so they changed the only recommended condition to being a 6 a.m. start time. So it is coming to you tonight with a recommendation of approval from the Planning and Zoning Commission. And there has been a conditional zoning agreement signed. So this one is in good standing, and I'm happy to answer questions.
All right, thank you. Anyone from the public like to address this? And seeing no one online either. Before I close this public hearing, just wanted to see if council is inclined to vote with P&Z. All right. I'm going to close the public hearing. Could I get a motion to give first consideration?
So moved. Weiner.
Second, Taylor.
Council discussion.
I like this.
Yeah.
Looks good.
I think it's going to be
it
great.
sounds
For
like
this
a-
use instead of RM44.
Yeah, a great addition to the neighborhood.
Yeah.
That when we talk about walkability and being able to do things within 10 to 15 minutes of your home, this
Great reuse of a historic building.
We talk a lot about neighborhood commercial, so it's exciting to see it hopefully happening here.
I go by this quite a bit, almost every day, and every time that I've gone by it in the past years when there was something, I was like, oh, is that, because I was thinking it is perfect for a coffee shop or something like that, and it never quite got traction of the different places that it, whatever was in there before. So on a personal note, I'm psyched that this is going forward. I think it's going to be great for the neighborhood.
All right. Roll call, please.
Burgess,
Yes.
Harmson,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Teague,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Weiner,
yes.
Alter.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 11, 2022, sanitary sewer, manhole, and pipe rehabilitation construction. Resolution approving project manual and estimate of cost for the construction of the 2022 sanitary sewer, manhole, and pipe rehabilitation construction project. Establishing amount of bid security to accompany each bid, directing city clerk to post notice to bidders, and fixing time and place for receipt of bids. I'm going to open the public hearing. And welcome, Scott.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Scott Silvers. I'm the Assistant City Engineer. Today I'm going to provide you a brief overview of the 2022 sanitary sewer, manhole, and pipe rehabilitation project. This rehabilitation project is a part of our annual sewer maintenance and repair program. Within this program, the city reviews the condition of city-owned sanitary sewer main and manholes. Many of the pipes and manholes containing deficiencies can be rehabilitated through a lining process. The advantage of this process is that it is significantly less disruptive to both public infrastructure and adjacent properties because it does not require excavations. Additionally, it is more cost-effective than full removal and replacement. This year's rehabilitation project includes the lining of approximately 11,500 feet of sanitary sewer main and 46 sanitary sewer manholes. The locations that we'll be focusing on this year are North Dubuque Street, Tanglewood Street, Ventura Avenue, an area around the Montrose Avenue and Rochester Avenue intersection, the Rochester Avenue corridor, Rochester Court, Windsor Court, Ridgewood Drive, California Avenue, Grantwood Drive, and Russell Drive. The estimated construction cost for this project is $550,000. As far as schedule goes, we're hosting the public hearing tonight, September 6th. The bid letting will be on September 22nd. Then we'll be bringing this back to you for award at the October 3rd meeting. Construction is scheduled for late October through June of next year, 2023. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you all have.
Since it's within existing sewers and manholes, does that mean that that disruption to the neighborhoods involved is minimal, or?
Absolutely, yep. So there's basically just a lining process that goes down through the manholes, the existing manholes. That's how they access the sewer. So there are no excavations, so the disruption is very minimal.
Thank you.
What's the anticipated life of the liners?
Studies show about 50 years. So fairly long life on them.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You bet.
Anyone from the public like to address this topic? Seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing. Can I get a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Second, Thomas.
Moved by Alter, seconded by Thomas. Council discussion. Roll call, please.
Harmson?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes?
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Weiner?
Yes.
Alter?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 12, I may not get this right. The Konnexion tobacco penalty. Resolution assessing $300 in civil penalty against the Konnexion. Could I get a motion to approve?
So moved, Harmson.
Second, Weiner.
All right. Any staff comments on this?
Sergeant Paul Batchelor
All right,
from the
great.
police department oversees the tobacco penalty process. So, Sergeant, maybe you can just give a quick overview on what this looks like.
And maybe, Sergeant, you can correct the pronunciation.
It's the Konnexion.
Thank you.
Yes. So I oversee our tobacco compliance program with the police department, between the police department and the ABD through the state. We have a grant that requires that we check every business in our city limits at least once per year to ensure compliance. And any failure or business that has a failure during that compliance check has to be rechecked. But during that process, we check as many, or I'm sorry, with each of the businesses we checked, in this situation, we checked 55 businesses. 45 of them failed this time around in 2022. And the Konnexion sold to our underage person who was 17. State law changed 2 years ago to require that the person purchasing any type of tobacco, tobacco-less tobacco, or vape products be 21 years old. And in this situation, we used somebody who was 17, who looked 17, and sent them into the businesses, and we still had these failures take place. So with the Konnexion itself, on June 30th, around 2 p.m., the underage person went in. The employee asked for ID, glanced at it, handed it back, and sold the tobacco product. The employee involved in this situation pled guilty on July 20th after we cited the person with providing tobacco to a person under age 21. So.
Did you say 45 out of 55 failed this?
No, I'm sorry. 45 passed out of 55 businesses.
Okay.
Maybe I misspoke. I apologize.
Oh, yeah.
Smoking his city.
Yeah.
Seemed like it was
Still not the best we've seen.
I thought maybe we would do these in batches.
Yes.
So now I understand.
Any questions?
We did have a lot of these in both our consent calendar and now in our regular agenda. I just had a question is when they apply for the permit, tobacco permit, are they required at all these companies to have any sort of an in-service to their employees that instructs them of the rules and how to spot fake IDs or young people?
That's a very good question. My understanding, and obviously I don't work for any of these businesses, but they partner up under what's called the iPledge program through the ABD. That requires that they provide training to their employees. And the employees are instructed much the same as they are for alcohol sales, that they have to make a reasonable attempt to determine the person's age prior to selling them these products.
Thank you.
I would just add that the state code kind of grants a get-out-of-jail-free card for those who have been through that training and yet sold anyway. They can present the certificate moving forward no more than once every 4 years, and then there's no civil penalty. So one would assume, since we haven't seen any indication of that in any of the 3 cases that are before you tonight, that they did not receive that training.
And who pays the fine? Is it the person? Is it the store, or is it the employer, or is it the person who sold the?
So the employee will receive a citation for providing tobacco to a person under age 21, and then the city, by virtue of the ABD, has the authority to
Fine the store. Or the
put a fine against the company or the business.
Yeah, the employee pays the criminal fine, and then the business pays the civil penalty. The civil penalty is what's before you tonight.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just very quickly on the facts of this, you'd mentioned that the employee looked at the ID, and just to clarify, that ID said the person was 17, right?
That's correct. Part of our program, and I should have probably said this, part of our program is that the person is briefed prior to working with us that they have to, if the person asks them their age, they have to be honest and tell them. They can't do anything deceptive in any way. If they ask for their real driver's license, they have to hand them their real driver's license. And it's just a straightforward compliance check. And so if they take any type of reasonable attempt by looking at the license, because if they're under age 21, it's going to be vertical and not horizontal, and it's stamped that they're under age 21, any type of reasonable attempt. We don't use out-of-state kids. We don't use any type of, they can't use any type of fake IDs. And to ensure that that process is valid, we search the person prior to them working with us to make sure there's not a fake ID or anything like that. In addition, we operate in plain clothes within visual distance, and as often as we can, we try and listen at the counter. We might be buying a pack of gum or something in line behind them to ensure that it's a straightforward compliance check. So we don't issue the citation until we're 100% sure. So.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And is there any representative from the business here? Seeing no one. Council discussion? Roll call, please.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Weiner?
Yes.
Alter?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Harmson?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 13 is RJ'Z, Express Tobacco Penalty. Resolution assessing $300 civil penalty against RJ'Z Express. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved. Weiner.
Second, Taylor.
Moved by Weiner, seconded by Taylor. And welcome again, Sergeant.
Yes, this is very much the same that I just described. This was on June 30th at 4:50 p.m. The person working with us went into RJ'Z Express at 2 Escort Lane, went there, and in this situation bought a pack of Newport cigarettes. The employee got the cigarettes, sold them without asking for any type of ID, age, date of birth, anything, and just sold the person. The employee involved pled guilty on July 15th of 2022 after being cited by us.
Any questions by council? Would a representative from this business like to speak at this time? Seeing no one, council discussion? Roll call, please.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Weiner?
Yes.
Alter?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Harmson?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 15, up and smoke tobacco penalty.
You missed 14.
Oh, yes.
Almost Paradise.
Item number 14, Almost Paradise Tobacco Penalty. Resolution assessing $300 civil penalty against Almost Paradise. Could I get a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alter, seconded by Weiner. And welcome again, Sergeant.
Thank you. In this instance, the same date, June 30th, around 1 p.m., The underage person went into Almost Paradise, requested a package of Esco Bars vape cartridge, which is contains nicotine. The employee got it, didn't ask for any type of ID or any age, and completed the sale. The employee was then cited and pled guilty on July 15th of 2022.
Any questions? Is there a representative from this business that would like to speak at this time? Seeing no one, council discussion. Roll call, please.
Thomas?
Yes.
Weiner?
Yes.
Alter?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Harmson?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Item 15, up in smoke tobacco penalty. Resolution assessing $1,500 civil penalty against up in smoke. Can I get a motion to approve, please?
So moved, Weiner.
Second, Taylor.
All right, welcome again, Sergeant.
How are you? All right. On June 30th at 3:45 p.m., again, the underage person went in, requested a vape item. The employee obtained it, began completing the sale, asked for ID, glanced at it, didn't look at it, handed it back to the person, the underage person, and completed the sale. And we issued a citation to the employee, who then pled guilty on July 28th of 2022.
Great. What was the age of the person with the ID?
This was the same person for all of these, who was 17 years old.
Great, thank you. Any more questions from council?
So they've had a couple of violations within the 2-year period. That's why the fine is elevated.
I would defer to Eric, but I believe that is the case.
That is the case, yes. It's second within 2 years.
All right. Any other questions from council? Hearing none, is there a representative from the business? Seeing no one, council discussion. Roll call, please.
Weiner?
Yes.
Alter?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Harmson?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. All right, we are on to item number 16, which is council appointments. Applicants must reside in Iowa City and be 18 years of age unless specific qualifications are stated. 16A is Historic Preservation Commission. Historic Preservation Commission has one vacancy to fill a 3-year term, July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2024. I'll go ahead and read the other appointments. Well, we'll do this one.
Yeah.
We'll do this one, yeah. So there was only one applicant. Although their choice was, their comments really were surrounding the Human Rights Commission.
Right. That was all I was going to say, is that we basically know nothing except they live in the right place.
Yeah.
With respect to their interest
College Street, right.
in this. But they just applied, so
Well, and they did,
they applied for both.
yeah, they noted that they also were interested in HPC.
Am I reading this right? This is one that's been open for over a year?
I would be okay with this.
Yeah, I think we should
I'm
go ahead and appoint
inclined
this
to
person.
fill it.
Do you want to do these individually, Mr. Mayor, or do them all and then vote on the end?
We'll vote at the end. So, yeah, I'm hearing support for Cole Eckhart.
Yes.
All right. And we're going to move on to item number 16B, is Human Rights Commission. Human Rights Commission, one vacancy to fill an unexpired term effective upon appointment through December 31st, 2024.
Yeah, my only note on this before we discuss is that it's required to be a male in this case, which cut out a lot of really good applicants.
Right.
This was an
I'm
incredibly
always
rich
impressed.
field.
I'm always impressed by the caliber of applicants, particularly for this commission and a couple of others. So thank you. Please apply again.
22 applicants by my count.
Yeah, or stick with it, please.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to throw a couple of names out just to start the discussion going of people who impressed me. TJ Dido was one. Is I believe, an art professor.
Oh, that's a female.
Yeah, I
Is that a
think TJ
female? Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
Yeah,
My apologies.
I don't
My
know if
apologies.
they're-
I
if they
misread
are-
it.
Yeah.
I misread it.
She's very impressive, though.
I know, but I
agree.
Very
I know her,
impressive.
yeah.
put it.
Very impressive, appears to use they, them pronouns, but designated as female. I'm
Yeah,
not sure
no,
what we should do about our applications in this.
I misread. So, I'm going to let other people go.
I was impressed with Kim Gilmore Sr. I think he's applied before, seems to have a good knowledge of the HRC, good background, and stated that he's African American, which would kind of help our diversity on our commissions. Just throw that one out there for you guys.
I would also throw out, I don't feel strongly about any of these, but we had a number of really good applicants. Doug Kolash.
Yep.
Worked very hard.
Oh, yeah.
Worked on Hawkeye Pride, Alumni Network, and so LGBTQ and so forth. And also Matt Arnold.
So we have Kim, Doug, and Matt that I heard so far. Thrown out there. Anybody want to give support to either one of them?
One of the ones that stood out to me was Doug as well. Although Kim Gilmore was in there and Matt, they're all three look very strong. But Doug was someone who struck me as potentially being really good.
I can support Doug.
I liked his comment about, I think he was the one described Iowa City as a beacon of inclusion and equality. That was impressive.
Okay. So we will go with Doug Kolash. Did I say that right?
Yep.
All right. And then item number 16C is Public Art Advisory Committee. Public Art Advisory Committee, one vacancy to fill an unexpired term, effective upon appointment through December 31st, 2022.
Mayor, I just want to point out, in your late handouts today, there was one more application for this.
Oh.
So it was a revised
That's a
cover
really good
sheet
one.
with the application.
So also want to point out that this appointment is for less than 6 months. So if the council wishes, we can appoint for unexpired term upon appointment, plus a full 3-year term, January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2025.
Well, I'm acquainted with Jeremy. I think he would be a good candidate.
I was impressed with Jeremy's application.
Any other comments?
Both applications look good, but if people
Yeah.
okay with Jeremy.
Okay. All right.
Endsley? E-N-D-S-L-E-Y. Endsley?
Well, we'll have to.
Will that be for the unexpired plus, or?
And do we want to do the unexpired, so it'd be for 6 months plus another three?
Sure. I'm
Okay.
fine with that.
All right. So could I get well, we already,
More.
I'll just do, could I get a motion to approve the Historic Preservation Commission? Appoint Cole Eckhart.
You want to also, there's one for the Senior Center Commission as well.
Yeah.
Oh, next page. Okay. Before we do that. 16D, Senior Center Commission. Senior Center Commission, one vacancy to fill an unexpired term, effective upon appointment through December 31st, 2024. And, all right, sorry about that.
Have one really good applicant.
And we're okay with that?
Mayor, I just want
Absolutely.
to make sure everybody realizes that the applicant is a city employee.
Is it what?
Oh. City employee. I don't.
Is there conflict?
Go ahead.
Well, Ms. Lard is a transit supervisor, if I recall, and the Board of Commission you're considering her for now is Senior Center Commission. I don't think there'd be a conflict between those two. Unlike, say, the Human Rights Commission or something, which would have a much, or CPRB, which would have a much broader perspective. The Senior Center seems narrow in its focus, and it would be hard for me to imagine that it'd be a conflict. If there was, as it related to, let's say, parking in Tower Place, she would probably just have to recuse herself from that vote.
May I ask then, because she mentioned it in her application, and I know her, she is one of the co-founders of the Diversity Market.
Yes.
And so say there was some kind of a, like, wouldn't it be great to have a way to engage seniors with the diversity market? Would that be an instance where she would also have to recuse herself, or would that be something that could be like a welcome community connection?
Would she have to recuse herself from the?
I don't know, from.
Not a city issue.
It's not a city issue, right, I guess, that's.
Well, yeah, I just want to make sure I understand, like recuse herself from the discussions in the senior center, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, if there was some plan that was like, hey, let's get the seniors to come to the diversity market, how can we make that happen as a commission or something?
Yeah, I would think probably not. That's kind of a fact-specific question.
Yeah, I realize that.
Obviously, if there's any kind of financial interest on her part
Okay.
or anything like that, my memory is that she owns, I think, JD Beauty Supply or something out there. So if there looked like there was a financial conflict, then sure. But if it was just trying to be more engaging of the senior citizens
Exactly.
out there,
Okay.
no.
Okay, great.
All right. So, I think we're ready for appointment. Could I get a motion to approve the following in regards to the Historic Preservation Commission, East College Street? Could I get a motion to appoint Cole Eckhart in relationship to the Human Rights Commission? Could I get a motion to appoint Doug Kolash in relationship to the Public Art Commission, Public Art Advisory Committee? Could I get a motion to appoint through December 31st, 2022, and also appoint for January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2025, and that appointment will be for Jeremy Inslee. And could I also get a motion to appoint Tasha Lard to the Senior Center Commission?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Taylor, seconded by Alter. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Item number 17 is announcement of vacancies previous. Applicants must reside in Iowa City and be 18 years of age unless specific qualifications are stated. Housing and Community Development Commission, one vacancy to fill an unexpired term. Applications must be received by 5 p.m. Tuesday, September 13th, 2022. Ad Hoc Truth and Reconciliation Commission, one vacancy to fill an unexpired term. Applications must be received by 5 p.m. Tuesday, September 27th, 2022. Airport Zoning Board of Adjustment, one vacancy to fill a 5-year term. Airport Zoning Commission, Iowa City Representative, one vacancy to fill a 6-year term. Historic Preservation Commission, Jefferson Street, one vacancy to fill a 3-year term. Vacancies will remain open until filled. And we are at City Council information.
combine committee plus,
Yes, committee, all of it.
oh, if we can combine that way. I'll start with committee, and Councilor Harmson and I are on the Rules Committee, and you can chime in if you want to.
Go right ahead.
We met recently, as you saw, in both the consent agenda and commission meetings for the CPRB and the HCDC with changes to their bylaws. We took into consideration the minutes and comments from the commission members, as well as some legal input, and you saw our conclusions in there. We agreed with them. Would you like to add anything to that? Or?
You did a very good job.
Okay. We got a great committee.
We do.
Don't have to meet very often, but they have some good important decisions to make, and I think these will be good changes and very positive changes to their bylaws. We had a lot of questions, but got those questions answered. That was all I had for committee. For announcements, I hope everybody had an enjoyable Labor Day. I'm fortunate enough, I'm on the Monday refuse route, so I was fortunate enough to have the city workers, so thank you to those city workers who worked on Labor Day and picked up our refuse as usual, so thank you to them. It was a great weekend. Saturday, I had a chance, my first time, to view a movie, outdoor movie at the Chauncey. I know Councilor Thomas will agree with this too. When we first talked about this and the whole Chauncey thing and having a movie in there, I was like, how can that be? You know, that there'll be traffic noise and just all kinds of things. And there was only one time that a fire truck was very loud, but otherwise, most of the traffic noise we didn't even notice. They had, I think, the theater, the volume was high enough that's what you paid attention to. It was a great movie and a great turnout, I thought. And
I was there too.
Everybody kept complaining about the weather and, I wish the weather was better, but it wasn't too bad. It was a little bit chilly, but not bad. So that was very enjoyable, and I'll hopefully be able to go to another movie there because that was fun. And then Labor Day on Monday, actually finally had the opportunity. We hadn't, it's no secret that I'm a member of Organized Labor, and we, since the first time since 2019, we're able to have the in-person picnic, which we always have, and it's always well attended with over 100 or something people. So it was great to see some longtime friends and see some new faces. So that was fun. So I hope everybody had a very enjoyable weekend. That's all.
I just want to do a great big shout out to the 50th anniversary of the Farmers Market, and I think just about all of us were there at one point, and it was just amazing to say, my God, it's been 50 years that this has been happening, and so I just wanted to make special mention of it, and thanks to the staff and everybody who is out there making it even more special than it usually was. That was really cool and very well done. Kudos to everybody.
Yeah, I'll date myself by saying I remember when they opened.
You're like Alaska's age.
First of all, I'd also like to, she's not here anymore, but really thank Ellie for her work as liaison from the university, and really second what she had to say about the dedication of the Stanley Art Museum. I was there, I think it was 2 Fridays ago. Nice event, fabulous museum, just really an incredible opportunity for the entire community. They talked about really, wouldn't it be wonderful if every single 3rd grade class in the city could go through it. And the opening exhibition is appropriately entitled Homecoming. All these sort of meshes the university with bringing the art home and bringing it back to our community.
If you want to go to the art museum without a crowd, I went on Saturday during the football game. I would recommend that to anyone if they're not watching the game.
It was definitely
It was really good. It was really, really good. We will have one more meeting before Climate Fest, but it happens right after our next meeting, I think starting on the 21st. So I was perusing the webpage today and just really excited about all the activities that'll be happening. I know our staff is working really hard and partnering with a lot of organizations to pull off a wonderful Climate Fest. So I think it begins the 21st with an event at Big Grove in the afternoon, I think at 4, and continues for a few days after that. So please check that out. And then the Peace Pole dedication in Mercer Park I think I missed the date and time. Did anyone catch that? Is that the 21st? At 6. Okay, thank you. We did have a really interesting EasyCog meeting if we're doing our board and commission updates. Also, our last EasyCog board monthly meeting was at the Innovation Lab up in Monticello. And that is a nonprofit that runs it that I'm going to blank on the name of the overall organization, but they're doing some really interesting and creative work, primarily supporting more rural communities, but I know they're collaborating with ICAD as well. They have a co-working space and kind of a maker lab and a whole lot of different things that they support for entrepreneurs and small businesses. So that was just a very exciting board meeting to learn about that. So I encourage you all to check it out.
Field trip.
Any other updates? All right, we're going to go to item number 19, reports on items from city staff. We'll start with our city manager's office.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Our city attorney.
Nothing for me either. Thank you, Mayor.
And our city clerk.
Nothing from me.
We're at item number 20. Could I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Taylor.
Second, Burgess.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned.